only just above our heads. Never would one be properly accustomed to the presence of the horrible yet magnificent Great One. The thought itself was too grand to comprehend. Oscar had difficulty sleeping due to this. It would never leave his mind that their dreams had finally come true. He would imagine the thousands of minds before him who prayed and sought the truth, now only to reveal itself to him. It was magnificent indeed. The Great One Ebrietas was slouched forward, back turned to them and facing the remains of the form she had once sprung from. The pose oddly resembled prayer to him. It could not possibly be sorrow, which was the other thing that came to mind. But it seemed more silly that someone of her stature would weep. While he and the rest of his following had stood in awe, she had never requested or prompted them into action. She had barely acknowledged their presence, but he surmised she was well aware of them. "Oh, daughter of the cosmos." He stepped closer and sounded as reverentful as he could to address her, but he caught it sounding awkward. Speaking with divine through prayer was nothing like speaking directly to it, in front of his very eyes. "We would beg of your knowledge to aid us in our search for the cosmos." In a very human fashion, she slowly raised her head upwards. All the tentacle limbs, along with the massive wings, gained new life and animated, spreading out and slithering around the air. The massive head turned to him with a gaping, morbid opening with the red viscera of eyes. The emerald orbs were now more apparent as an illusion, like the deceptive patterns on a butterfly's wings. There were sounds all around her, described as water dripping, the tone of bird song, scattering of carapace, and something high pitch like a whistle, traveling all around her like several minuscule mouths spoke all at once over her body. She lowered her head straight into the ground before him. A faint glow of common quality crept out from under her head. The wondrous and enigmatic miracles of the Godhead would never cease. Small phantasms, the little snail creatures crawled forth from under her head as if leaking out, producing the bluish glow. Ebrietas remained with her head lowered as the phantasms snailed their way closer to him. Mayhew walked up and stood beside him. He knelt down, hand extended towards the little ones. "Oh, pretty, is it not?" They pulled towards his hand. Little August. He closed his eyes. Yes. Just like the tomb. Little messengers. Oscar gasped. Yes, of course. This is our insight. The proper medium. Don't you recall the work the church did long ago? With phantasms? Mayhew smiled serenely, seemingly more so from the presence of the aimlessly crawling invertebrates than the revelation. I do indeed. Crude ways, lacking parts of the whole truth. But here we have it. Her medium of communication. Like they thought so long ago. He continued to stare into his cupped hand. Eventually he looked up at Ebrietas with something of a longing, mournful look. Quite suddenly, he had brought his hands to his mouth and gulped up the phantasms. Oh, but Mayhew! He did not consume all of them, just a portion. The rest he let back onto the damp cave floor. But don't you? I know. But it is different this time. I am not afraid. Ebrietas turned her head up, and it was as if her eyes, her true eyes of contact, met with Mayhew's as they stared upon one another. I hear her whispering now. Oh, it's settling. Oh, pardon me. It is a bit unpleasant. He put his hands to the floor, looking a bit sick as he took deep breaths. The phantasms facilitate evolution. Mayhew? He asked wearily. Well, I'm fine. Naturally. We must allow part of divinity into ourselves. If we ever are to receive its guidance. He fell silent and shut his eyes. After a moment he sat up more straight, eyes still closed. That phantasms grow in the seedbed of a lumenwood. We still need them to extend beyond her whispers. She's telling you this? I share it, I believe. Thoughts writhe inside my head. They are pleasant if you allow them. It does indeed feel like I've been touched by her. Like she extended into me. He let out a most rapturous, quivering sigh. It's about the sounds. Listen to the sounds. How they travel like waves in the air. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of them. Yet we hear but a few of them. Why? Oh, tell us why, oh great Ebrietas. Oscar turned to her, who was still looking at Mayhew. It truly felt like he was now speaking with her again. He hoped, in all her divinity, that she pardoned his cowardice for not taking the phantasms himself. Mayhew continued. Our eyes do not see them. Simple as that. None of us can because we are... We don't have the eyes for it. The ears to receive it all. But... the phantasms can give us just that. Weldmere was walking into the garden like he had recently done every morning before heading to the research hall. The area underneath the clock tower bridge had been renovated to fit a second garden for their experiments. He alone seemed to be taking the Great One's wisdom seriously, as it was evidently only he that bothered to check up on the project. Granted, one man doing the simple observation regularly was enough, but he still felt a bit aggravated that it was only him. Perhaps it seemed too unbelievable to others, but to him it was only a matter of time. Who needed faith when one had seen the truth of the gods? He walked up to the edge of the steps, leading down to the fresh dirt coverage, and looked around. It was still just dirt. He walked upon it, spying more closely. It was then he spotted something that caused him to run excitedly all the way to the research hall entry, where bypassers surely had one or two concerned thoughts for his behavior. But in his childlike vigor, he had no concern for them. He threw himself around the corner into the room where Eduarda still persisted with the research of phantasms, different symbiosis.
Here we are! The lumenwood grows! At last! Just like it was foretold!
She, and everyone else, looked up from their slouched examinations, like he had just rushed into their bedchambers, rudely awakening them all. Eduarda stood looking over the shoulder of a researcher, poking delicately at the body of a frog. She raised one eyebrow at him.
Really?
She said dryly, but his excitement was not swayed.
It's true. Her phantoms are indeed unique. We might as well throw out all this morbid fauna. It is the flora that works.
She shrugged and started walking around the table towards him. A little ironic, don't you think? Regarding the seed beds.
Yes, yes. Just come and look already.
It was hard not sprinting back the same way he had arrived, for detailing researchers insisted on believing it once they saw it, rendering them thus far immune to anticipation, it would appear. He rushed out on the path of dirt and knelt before the little sprout, barely visible. He removed a bit of dirt around it to expose it properly. Eduarda remained standing, leaning over slightly to examine it. Well, indeed.
Huh! Isn't it magnificent?
It certainly seems so. Well, come on then. Let's dig it up and see. She waved with a hand for some of the accompanied researchers to fetch the shovels among the remaining tools from the garden's establishment. Morbidly, they had happened to be tossed into an open coffin. Weldmer still surged with energy and walked over to grab one from the man's hand to spiritedly begin uncovering the plant's source. It was but a shallow layer, and he carefully removed the dirt around the plant before kneeling down once again to brush it away with his hands. There, the roots of the tiny bluish bud became more pronounced. They were more pale and already teeming with little crawling phantasm larvae vigorously feeding on the thing. He plucked one of those that seemed to have hardened into a cocoon and held it up in front of his face.
See? Already a change.
I must say, due to how old the thesis was, I was a bit skeptical.
Naturally.
He looked wonderingly at the little glistening bean shape.
What a genius, that Willem. To have gotten this idea all that time ago.
He gently placed it back and covered it up with some dirt, letting it resume its rest. He uncovered more of the pale roots that grew from blue into stark white further down. Then he happened upon the collarbone, and he withdrew his hand by the morbid surprise. You better continue. There might have occurred further alterations to other parts than just the head. Conveniently, the church workshop lay just in liaison with the upper cathedral ward. It was just a slight detour down the high street that led towards the more populated cathedral ward. In the middle of the day, the church hunters usually slept. Some made the workshop alive with their tinkering and maintenance, one of whom Morris knew to be Ludwig. An annoyance from his time in training, as the spry Ludwig would cheerily aggravate them with early morning practice routines. With his back turned to the entry hallway, the captain of the church hunters stood over an office desk, equipped as if the night was just upon them. sword on his back, the flowing mantle of the church adorning sturdy gauntlets, as well as boots with armored plating. A true modern knight. Upon decreasing the proximity between them, Ludwig turned his head up.
Well, well, young Morris comes for the hunters.
He turned back to the desk surface with several papers known to Morris as the typical monotonous work of organizing the hunter's marks.
Here to join the preparations?
No. I came on the choir's behalf. Ludwig looked back at him, suggesting he had taken offense at the dour tone with which Morris had spoken, as it was hard not to make known the nostalgia conjured by the workshop.
Ah, official errands.
He pulled out the chair and sat down, examining him for a moment.
Fully fledged, it seems. Have you too resigned from the tomb?
Ludwig asked.
More or less. I have been offered a new position. I am proud, verily.
Cures are in development. Against the scourge. New blood comes from the church, untarnished by the beasts.
Truly? Will the tides finally turn in our favor?
Not without its shares of hunter's work, I'm afraid. The captain crossed his arms, seemingly already prepared to accept the anticipated terrible truth.
No cure for the beasts, then?
No. I'm afraid it appears rather permanent. Perhaps a lengthy recovering period in lesser cases would do. But we cannot spend resources on that for now. What the church means to relay is that the hunt is to transition into a purge, eradicate the beasts. The blood will now start to flow and be administered to the people. It will keep them from turning, but the beasts could potentially still carry the scourge and must therefore be dispatched as quickly as possible, as with any individual exhibiting traits of a carrier. The captain thought to himself for a moment.
Very well. I might need to recruit more hunters.
As soon as possible. The administration process has already begun. What is needed of the hunters is increased activity on hunts. The hunters with a clerical background have already been notified of a doctorate program that will develop their skills at detecting signs, among other experimental treatments.
Is this the choir's decision?
It is.
Not Vicar Oscars. It was him, you know, that ordered the installation of cleric hunters. Not so long ago now.
Morris became conflicted. Something Ludwig must have noticed. Stretching out his legs and laying one foot over the other. One never truly outgrows their master, it seems. The very same, Morris replied, and Ludwig nodded knowingly.
New blood, you say?
The hunter captain always seemed to be able to tell when the whole truth was not explained. Frighteningly enough, he also appeared to be able to foretell what that withheld truth more precisely entailed. Perhaps it was just a biased opinion expected of a previous student, or it was part of the reason he became the captain of the church hunters to begin with.
Very well. As captain, I leave the educational part to you. The training, however, will require more time. The volunteer program could of course be expanded, but that would demand people as well. I suppose a more rudimentary course could also be offered, for brevity. But if you still insist on only clerics, you might have to train the whole church. No need. Able bodies will be enough. Aside from those that might pose compromised as inflicted. I see. Well, perhaps it is truly time for the people to defend their own home from this nightmare.
Peyton was enjoying the readings of a theological study from the East. He sat alone in the grand circular hall in the east wing of the grand cathedral. The dining hall, frequented by personnel that seated the curved tables around the room. Long arching tables stretched along the curvature of the wall, and further round tables were positioned in the room's center. He had occupied one of the middle tables and sat alone, absorbed by the book as he limply brought the food to his mouth. The process of finishing his lunch was a slow one, as the contents in the literature was more captivating. He was particularly fascinated by the section that detailed resemblances in the teachings of the Healing Church with that of the so-called monasteries of the East. How the notion of a great being dominated the popular notion of God. Although to them it was more of a formless concept, which caused the great god Elden to come to mind. Could it be that the same entity did indeed favor many cultures, and that the great lord had manifested his spirited form to them? There were also accounts that made him think less of the great Elden, of a different entity that was very similar, yet the downright opposite of the former. The second was said to be of vile nature, and was the cause of all the filth and corruption in the world. This had the two phantasmal domains in constant conflict, in reign over the lands, as told by the study. He was pulled from his readings by a voice that sought his attention. He looked up and saw the vicar standing by his table. A man younger than him, but carried that authoritarian superiority in his charming complexion. Peyton's fork had stopped in the process, and the potato had by now fallen back to the plate.
Oh my, vicar. Please sit.
It was meant as a courteous gesture in recognition for his higher stature, but he cringed internally shortly after by the risk of sounding pretentious. Thank you. He sat down opposite him with a kind expression. Peyton wiped off his mouth with a napkin, despite feeling no physical need to. Mr. Peyton.
Yes?
The vicar flipped open a leather-bound book and shot a quick glance inside. About 37 years. You knew Harold well. He was surprised by the sudden mention of his late friend.
Yes. Very well. I owe my position in the church to him. In my own opinion, at least.
You thought he made a good vicar? The question was more posed as a statement, suggesting Vicar Oscar knew more about Peyton without needing to ask.
Well, yes. Although...
He looked around the room and instantly thought it silly. The only one that would suffer by his opinion would be the deceased Harold.
Perhaps. I thought it, lightly unnecessary to so doggedly pursue Lawrence research.
The vicar turned down towards his ledger again. You were involved with the research of Embrace.
Oh yes, right after... Well...
He leaned in over the table to speak more hushed.
After it claimed the first vicar.
Oscar nodded. Yes, I see. Have you considered becoming a church hunter?
Me? Oh, no. Well, perhaps yes. But at my age it seems a bit too late.
He chuckled socially at the obvious fact. The vicar just smiled agreeingly.
I feel I'd do more good as a traditional cleric.
Right, I understand that. But you encourage the cleric hunter program. It's education and all.
Oh yes, I firmly do. It's about time we can finally take back the town from this horrible scourge.
Indeed. He closed the book, leaned back, laying one leg over the other knee, and looked at him. What are you reading?
The Mysterious East. A theological study. Quite thrilling.
Out of every informative detail, this was the only one provoking the hint of a genuine smile. Interesting. You know what? You are certainly very capable, and have the experience, and a hint of innovation. I am resigning as vicar. I recommend you for the position. He must have heard wrong. He thought he heard wrong. But he did not. He leaned forward, trying to respond, but was unable to do so. He leaned further over the table and tried again.
Me? What? Why are you resigning?
Oh, it's due to the formation of the choir. Yes, I suppose I should mention you would not be the quite same vicar as me. The leading direction and the head administration would still be conducted by the choir. This is just a transition into a new structure. I feel the church is a much larger body to be mainly governed by a sole individual. The choir is the head council. You would act as an actor, head advisor, conductor of municipal interactions, and department chief.
Oh, I see. Sounds very reasonable. And, well, a load off my shoulder. I would not easily feel so inclined to take up such a responsibility.
Oh, do not fret. As I said, you will be reporting to the choir, but seeing your experience, vicar would be more or less the same as you do now. You are, after all... He flipped open the book again. Head of the research hall. New duties would mean counseling and mentoring of subordinate clerics and church attendants. Not a problem?
I suppose.
Splendid. He stood up and reached for his hand. Congratulations. I am very excited about what's to come. You should be too.
Thank you.
He turned and walked. Formal announcement in 3 days' time. I'll just have to process the information with the other chairman. And suddenly, Peyton had become vicar of the Healing Church. Emerging through the door, leaving behind the shuffling sound of the crowd as the attendants stood and made for the exit, into the sacristy halls, waited the now former vicar Oscar, leaning casually against the left wall as Peyton entered. Congratulations! How was the reception? He had little genuine enthusiasm, but spoke like it was not the first vicar he had indoctrinated. His tone was calm, and he shot only a vague glance in his direction.
It was something. But I'm honored. Truly. I am very passionate about the young minds, and will see that the church only improves.
I'm glad. Glad that a vicar can truly live up to the title. He stepped away from where he had greeted him and walked into the chamber. It was fairly spacious, with apparels to arm every cleric at the same time if they were in need. Armoires and shelves along the walls, and 2 long tables. Oscar sat down at one of them. Above him hung an adorned chandelier, providing them light. The choir brings news, the first of its kind that are to be known by the vicar. Peyton moved to stand by the table. He wondered if now was the time to change into his common garb. But he knew he had always seen Harald dressed in the formal wear. So he put the thought aside. The choir, you see, have encountered an epiphany, and quite by accident. We have been in communion with the very gods. He paused and shot a sneaky look his way. He could not bring himself to possibly interrupt what was being said. The choir are those that stand the goddess close. We execute her will, and as for now, her will is being properly executed.
The goddess?
he asked dreamily. Who? Not one of the known pantheons. She is the Blessed of Blood, the daughter of the cosmos. She has a name, but you all will know it soon enough. My. But what is her will? Oscar leaned back leisurely, almost verging on a curious gratification. Her divinity represents our struggle. The matron of the healing church. She is here to reach out to the great ones, their herald and angel. It all made sense. The infernal question bothering Peyton had been in regards to the state of the vicar's faculties. Resigning so abruptly was to him, at first, a display of weakness. The indication that the very pressured work had gotten the better of him. But no. The vicars are the wisest of them, and remain so still. Of course that Oscar, as beholder of greatness, ought to dedicate himself wholly to its will. Peyton felt overwhelmed, to the point he had to sit down. My oh my, have we finally succeeded in our holy mission? After all this time? This is the beginning of the end. The goddess is here to guide us to the realm of the gods. Then there will be a constant connection. Then we will truly be ever near them. However, there is the matter of the scourge. The shifted topic caught Peyton out from his dreaming trance. Oh, yes, of course. We require frequent communions. The people must partake of the goddess' divine blood. It has been unfortunate, but one must admit defeat for the sake of the people. The blood does indeed carry the scourge within it. This, however, does not. It comes directly from Her Holiness. Blood caused our curse, and so it is blood that will, in the end, have it revoked. I see. Yes, I admit. There have long been poor developments to distinguish the source of the scourge. Perhaps it is innate after all. But this blood is not the same? Oscar smiled haughtily. It is not. It is fresh. It comes from her very own body. The source of the preserved bloods was always of undetermined nature. Oh, praise be. Never did I think I would see the day. Oscar stood. Peyton continued to sit, awestruck. You continue the good work. The people are in your hands. We will chart the course. Just consult us if your duties grow troublesome. I will. That I will indeed. Oh, thank you, Master Oscar. Thank the choir. Mention it not. He started to leave, but halted. He turned and retrieved a golden pendant from his neck. He looked at it for a while. Then he removed it from his person. You should have this. It has been passed down to every vicar. Now it is yours.
Choir garb. Attire of the choir. High-ranking members of the Healing Church. Members of the choir are both the highest-ranking clerics of the Healing Church and scholars who continue the work that began at Bergenworth. Together with the left behind the Great One, they look to the skies in search of astral signs that may lead them to the rediscovery of true greatness.